Action.
Good morning, and welcome to Your Business in Digital. We are live. How's everyone doing this
Woo!
morning? Welcome back, Andrea. We missed you last week. How was your time off?
I know. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Awesome,
Plug
awesome.
for Tobago. Please visit all of you on our internet streets here. Tobago is a beautiful island. You'll love it.
I love that. Check you doing promo for Trinidad for Tobago, not even Trinidad.
Right. Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Tourism on the tourism board. I love that. All right. Well, we're ready to rock and roll. So let's kick off the show. Good morning, and welcome to Your Business in Digital. I'm Tamara Moloui. I am super excited to be here with my amazing co-hosts, Michael, Michelle, and Andrea. And we do this show every Monday and Wednesday because we want to talk to you about your business in digital marketing, and how you can really leverage digital to grow your business, right? You want to get to that place where you're saying to your CFO, Andrea, hey, digital helped me increase my revenue by 10%, by 20%. You want to see that return on investment. We know you spent a lot of time and money there. So this is for the business owner. This is for the business executive thinking about how can digital really help me grow my revenue? So let me get some housekeeping out of the way. So we definitely want you to connect with us, okay? Tell a business executive about this show. Tell a business owner, small business owner about this show. Let them know that we are here talking digital marketing strategies. We're helping you to really get to that place of money in the bank, right? We want to move way beyond those likes and follows to get to that place of money in the bank. So check us out live on YouTube and on LinkedIn and Instagram. We're also live on Facebook, but if you can't catch us live, that's fine. You can watch the replays on all those platforms. And if you're really into podcasts, we are everywhere podcasts are found, right? So we are on Spotify, we're on Amazon, we're on Apple, we're in all the places. So definitely check us out there. All right, so that's the housekeeping that is out of the way. So thank you. I appreciate that. In our last show, we got the recap this morning. So in our last show, we talked about sales in the digital age and overcoming those common pitfalls, right? And really understanding the connection of sales and marketing and how they work together. And I'm gonna kick this over to Michelle because Michelle, this was really in your lane around sales and marketing, and you definitely gave us a lot of insight. So I think you got to do this recap. So go for it.
Sure, and happy Monday and first Monday in March for all. We are so happy to have you here in the third month of our 2024. Well, last Wednesday, we began the journey of showing where, from just a different angle, where sales and marketing kind of began to navigate toward each other and focus strictly there and talk about it. So we spoke initially about how do we make sure that when we're thinking of sales and digital marketing, how do those initiatives align? Because they are not separate entities. They're really combined and intertwined across everything that we do. So understanding what those business objectives are in sales and how do they align with our digital strategy. What steps do we avoid to not do things? So what do we neglect? How do we avoid those things that we have been neglecting in the customer experience? And how do we intertwine those from a sales aspect as we are on that digital journey? What does that mean for your business succinctly? And how do we identify that and make sure we don't fall into those pitfalls as we're moving through it? And most importantly, how do we effectively segment that business and ensure that we have the right audience that we're speaking to in that sales journey? And at each step in the digital aspect, how are we addressing and understanding the know, like, trust factor in each one of those steps and delivering that message to them that moves us into the what now thing? What's next for them so that we're moving them through there and to the next stage so that we're involving our clients and keeping at the forefront of everything we do and understanding that continuum for every aspect of our sales cycle. So how do we optimize that and ensure that our digital strategy is aligned with our sales strategy so that we bring that money into the bank and we ensure that our CFO and our director of ops is fully understanding what we're trying to do from a sales and marketing position.
This is where we break the silos, man. This is where we
Mhm.
have these amazing conversations and we break those silos of that happens between sales and marketing, that happens between finance, sales, and marketing, and that happens between finance, sales, marketing, and operations. I should have just said that once, but it happens, you know what I mean? It's like these little layers. It happens here, then it happens here, and then these guys are friends. But as you can see, we're all friends here on this show. We understand the importance, and digital really can help you help the sales team, right? That's really important. Digital and digital marketing should be helping your sales team because that's what leads to the money in the bank. So it's not a strategy that it's removed from your sales team by any means, and there should be dialogue there. So great recap, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the cost, work me up. I'm not supposed to come in just yet. I'm not into hot topic.
No, I saw it, it's like, oh, I was just like, you know what? I was just like, Michelle, this was Michelle's world. So I was just like, you're always ready for it. No one here is ever nervous that something's going to be thrown to them. Everyone's like, and that's the game we play today. All right. So we are moving on along. We're moving on to our hot topics. I am excited about this. Michelle, you're back on the hot seat for our hot topic. So let's go introducing our hot topic segment. Yay! So what are we talking about today with our hot topics?
Well, on today's hot topic, we're going back into the world of things not to do. But in this respect, we're moving back into the food space, and we're speaking about something that we haven't talked about in quite a while, and it is in regard to pricing, marketing, and sales. This time around, we're speaking about Wendy's. It is a fast food chain here in North America. And there was something that happened a couple of weeks ago that should have been just a passing glance, as the CEO of Wendy's was announcing on an investor call about the company that has just completely just torn things apart and caused quite a bit of chaos. Well, what he did was he announced that there was a digital menu technology that Wendy's was embarking on. And the thing that caught the ears and eyes of a couple of reporters was the mention of dynamic pricing, specifically that pricing would be fluctuating throughout the course of the day. Now, where this began to be a problem is that for the backlash and the controversy that was so weird is that we've not heard of this in the food industry. We're accustomed to it in places like the airline industry. We all know that you could go in and look at a price for a flight 1 minute, make the mistake and navigate away from the screen and get back into it 5 minutes later, and that price could be gone at a different price point, up or down. But in the food industry, when we're looking at prices for food, we're not accustomed to seeing it. There's a consistency that's there, especially throughout the day. It's not something that we're looking for to fluctuate. However, it became a big deal once the buying community understood what was going on, because they were thinking that it was going to be something similar to what we see with the airline industry, or when you're looking at things like Lyft or Uber, where if it's really busy, we see spikes in the pricing. As demand increases, we see spikes in pricing, not the opposite way where we see discounting that's attached. So that sparked a real big controversy and some furor in the buying community. Now, Nia, go ahead and move on to the next slide. Now, what this ended up being was a PR nightmare in the long run. Wendy's PR team, the marketing team, and their spokespeople had to come back to clarify and to speak to it, to say that, look, hey, this dynamic pricing can be a great thing. We intend to place discounts and value offers during slow periods. We're not looking to just spike prices, but we're looking to have some cost-effective value that's there for our buying community. So basically, slow your roll. We messaged it wrong. My bad. Let me get back to a place that makes sense and try to roll that back. Now, what does this mean for small businesses? And I thought it was prudent to bring to the table now, especially as we're hearing a lot in our communities about recession and price sensitivity and slower sales, or the consumers not buying. And many small business owners are looking to change their pricing in order to awaken and move sales forward. And I'm here to tell you, pay attention to the Wendy story, because it tells a couple of great stories that we should heed. One, we really need to go back to what we spoke about last show, the show before that, all of the past 3 seasons, where we're talking to you and saying, understand who your consumers are and what their perceptions are and what their triggers are when we are trying to deliver a message to them. Understand what makes them tick. Number 2, know the value proposition for your business and what needs to be said to your community. What is your value prop, and stick to it in every form of communication throughout the sales journey that your customer will have from beginning to end. The third point is that we have to consider any long-term implication when we are putting together our pricing strategy and that marketing sales delivery when we put that strategy in place. While any discounting strategy will give you a long-term a short-term effect, we need to understand what that long-term implications may be to your profit margins, to your brand. How is that now going to be a perception concern for your business if you are not addressing this appropriately? The fourth thing that we need to be mindful of is there needs to be some sort of balance here. We need to understand what that pricing flexibility means with how the consumer view will be and whether or not they're going to be appropriately satisfied and move your business forward. So price, customer satisfaction, both need to be balanced. And finally, this was the interesting piece that I'm not sure really hit home when they put out this digital technology for everyone, is that there is an AI component that we can now begin using in pricing, and using that technology wisely, understanding how your pricing can be flexible based upon who your consumer segment is, the time of day, time of year, and help you to manage that, but also automate components of it so that you can maximize your profits and improve your customer satisfaction. So for our Monday morning, there's our hot topics: Wendy's, pricing, and PR.
I love this one. This one was so good. That's crazy that they did that and they didn't think about the implications. And I'm sure people were just like, what are you doing? Because that's supposed to be something that's also super affordable, right? So you kind of have, in your mind, if I'm getting a Wendy's meal, right? You're feeding your family for what, $25? Now you're like, there's a sliding scale? What did I do wrong?
Yeah. Or do I have to get there the time of day? It is introducing it on a call versus a rollout, a PR rollout across the nation that aligns with what you're doing to have a positive effect on the buying community versus a financial reporter interpreting what you're trying to say. I thought that was just a big miss, a huge miss.
Yeah, they miss the opportunity for education, right? Because you have to really kind of really condition the consumer to think about this as something that's a benefit to them. And so they missed a huge opportunity to educate because you've been doing it for one way for a long time. And I think that's what people sometimes miss in marketing. As you're making a pivot, you sometimes have to start by educating your consumer. And that can take a little bit of time before you're able to say, hey, and this is what it really looks like, right? By the time they're so deep in, they're like, oh, we get really great discounts at this time, right? Instead of like, I need to show up at this time. This needs to happen. This needs to happen. And you kind of get frazzled.
Think about how often that sits in your world. Like this local cafe that I go to, they have baked goods. And at 3 o'clock, they begin discounting the baked goods. And there's a sign There's a donut place here in the United States. It's Krispy Kreme. There's a rotating light twice a day. You know, at that point there'll be fresh donuts. They're triggers that we're so accustomed to seeing, things like that that we know that are time sensitive, windows of time where they could have related to that. And people have been like, oh yeah, that's right. If I go at this time of day, I can get certain things, but normalized pricing at a specific time of day. So they're talking about something that could have been positive on the cutting edge of technology too in their realm that they could have introduced. Like you said, money saving, a digital menu that's very different. That's a cost-effective operational type thing that they lost the advantage in and now are on their heels. I thought such a huge missed opportunity.
Well, Wendy's, if you need help. We figured it
Call
out.
the sister. Call the girl. Call us.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug.
What would you do?
But I love the, you know me, I went straight to the numbers part of it and I was like, well, this makes sense. You know, having catering for that slower period and adjusting your pricing. You know, it makes sense because at the end of the day, I always look at these retail spaces, especially food places. When I go and I sit and I look around and I'm like, how many people do you have to serve every hour in order for you to break even? And you're right, there are periods of time where it's a rush, and then there are periods of time when it's quiet, but the same number of staff remains. So I already went down the line of, yeah, this is a way of getting into those fixed costs that I have to pay anyway. So I might as well try to get some money coming in during these slow periods. And it's a concept that all different types of businesses use, right? You find even when like a clothing store, boutique store, when for us here in Trinidad, when it's carnival time, yeah, those boutiques are packed because everybody's looking for outfits. But once carnival is over, it's quiet because there's nowhere to go. Well, for us here, it's Lent, you know, so it's quiet time. It's, you know, nobody's going everywhere, you know, until it picks back up maybe again after Lent and into what we call our August vacation. So I like the idea, but yeah, it's a PR nightmare though, because they flipped it on its head. And now it may actually take longer to see the benefit because people are going to be skeptical now. They're going to be like, well, I'm not too sure, you know, if I go to stay this hour, next thing you know, I get a different price. And, you know, yeah, so it might actually backfire on them now because of the PR element. And that's bad because from a finance element, it was something right for the business.
I know Nia's given us our time check, so I want to add my 2 cents really quickly. Canada is not having any of it. That story ran here. They were like, I don't see why I have to pay, because the time periods we're talking about is early morning and lunchtime, right? And what they're saying basically is if you are a late night snacker, great, you're going to get stuff cheaper. But absolute PR nightmare in that everyone heard was prices are going to be higher when I go. That's what they heard. So I think Michelle hit it spot on. There's that education. It's why we're doing this. They're saying, you know, the margins in this industry are really thin. So they're just trying to maximize those margins. But all we hear is fast food, cheap food. Don't tell me anything else.
Love it. All right, so we're getting our time checks in the back, so let's move on along. This was a great hot topic. That's why we all had so much to say. All right, so we're moving on to our other segments. Our Go Beyond the Likes segment. And this is where we go way beyond the likes and follows to get to that place of a true digital strategy, right? What are the things that you should be doing, you should be thinking about to get you to that place of money in the bank? And today we're talking about lead nurturing, right? Strategic lead nurturing, optimizing workflows for business growth. So we always talk about lead generation, not just us. In the world of digital, you hear people talk lead gen. It's such a buzzword. They talk about it. I was on a call probably a few months ago when, the thing about lead generation came up, and someone actually said, well, yeah, what about lead nurturing? That's where the issue really lies. We don't really understand that concept. And so this conversation is about nurturing those leads, those B2B leads, and, how you can really, how the concept of what to do, how to do it, why to do it, all the things. So, all right, let's jump into the first point. And, guys, hold on to your seats because you never know who this is going to come to. Just playing. Just playing. All right. So, what are the different stages of the B2B buyer's journey, and what types of lead nurturing content are the most effective at each stage of that journey, right? So I love this question. And, when we look at the stages of a buyer's journey, right, we're always looking at awareness, we're looking at consideration, and we're looking at decision making. Now, we can break those down in between. Of course, you can break consideration down to a few different steps. You can break decision making down to a few different steps. But it comes back to, how do you attract the person, right? How do you draw them in through the awareness? So you want that attraction content. You want that, maybe you're highlighting something in their pain point. Maybe it's a blog, right? Maybe they're starting their journey in awareness in SEO, and they're putting in a keyword, and you're ranking for that keyword, and you draw them in by answering their question, because what the search engine is really, you're the answer to the search, right? So they're asking a question and you become the answer, and that's a way of drawing them in. So blogs are a really great way to do that. Video podcasts like Your Business in Digital are a really great way to do that from an awareness standpoint, because when people run in and find this, when they find this show, they start listening, they're like, oh, wait, this gives me these concepts that I've been thinking about. So this is a really good show at that top of the funnel as well, too. I'm going to pass it over to the team because I'm not going to hog it all to talk a little bit about some of the content pieces. I hit some of the awareness pieces, but let's jump in to talk about that type of content that you want to see maybe in the consideration phase and the decision making phase. So anybody go for it. No pressure.
I'll jump in, no pressure. But that consideration stage, so just to differentiate that awareness stage, I think we can think about that as what you started off with, that lead generation, or that what we are starting to say now is prospecting. So using that digital to prospect. So you're getting that awareness. But in consideration now, you want to demonstrate that authority. You want to demonstrate how you solve that problem. So you're looking at things like webinars or case studies or product demonstrations, because now you're looking at that business to business. You're looking for that deeper content that says, listen, this is how we solve for this. This is how much we are aware of the problems in this industry and so on. So that's what you want to look at. And you're going to get, that content is going to get more, not necessarily longer, most likely longer, but it's going to get more in depth, right? So you may have started with those infographics, things that are easily digestible, but now you want to go into, okay, listen, I'm in construction. Let's look at how I solved this engineering problem with this build, right? And maybe it's something that it's a common problem in the industry. So that's where you want to go with that. So I'll pass it over there. That's my two points on consideration content.
Yeah, I think I'll just expand on the consideration as well. I find consideration is really important, especially in the space where it's technical, as he was explaining, things like construction, things like what we do, consulting. People want to know, do you know the thing that you're selling? That's what they want to know. Remember from Friends, they know that we know that they know, right? So it's like, do you know what you're speaking about? And do you have the capability to take the problem that I am having and solve it? So it's almost like a math equation, solve for X, right? Show me how you're going to get to that point and make it easy for me to understand. And this point resides with me, because I guess, and it should reside with all business owners. I think this is a lot of time has to be spent here, because this is where people will know if to continue listening. So you got them in, and then if you don't continue saying the right words to say, well, oh yeah, I think, yeah, I could solve the problem you have, they're just going to walk away and not even get to decision stage. So I think consideration here, a lot of effort, and I think this is the part of the process that has to take a lot of attention.
I'm going to bring it home on the decision piece, because I love to say in this piece that it's time to marry me. It's time to, seal that deal. And what from a business standpoint, what information do you need to provide to seal this deal? And this is, think about it when you're buying something, the things that you're searching for that final trust factor. Where are those testimonials that someone's going to look for, because they're looking for photos, information on whether or not someone who's previously purchased your product enjoyed it, what were the pitfalls, or can they find the answers to the questions that they're looking for? Where are your FAQs to help to understand that final piece of it, like your return policy, what's your shipping policy, those type of things, so they can get through. And in some instances, a free trial. Can I test run you, what you're offering in advance of purchasing? Amazon has something similar where you can try before you buy. Think of those type of things that are going to help to move that deal further to down the funnel and succinctly get someone to say, yes, I will commit my money to you. So that's where we are in the decision-making process.
I'm going to answer that really quickly, because one of the things I discovered in our sales process, right, as we're, working, building our leads and trying to close deals, one of the things I start doing now is a high-level analysis. So in one of the last conversations, I present to them is, here's your business and here's where it could be. Here's some high-level data, market research to say that this is where you could be. And then I took a high-level snapshot of your online presence and here's where you are. That changes the game, because it's the conversation about them. I do it in a Loom video, I send it over, and it's very focused on them and their business. And it helps to close the deal, because now they can see, hey, this is what Monovan Digital can do. This is what working with a digital marketing consultant can do. These are all the things. So it's about the show and tell. And a lot of times we hear, hey, hold back that information. But as people are making a decision to make not a $50 spend, you want to get them to a place of feeling comfortable, right? This is what we're walking into, and I can connect this back to my business goals.
What a very smart thing to do. And see, that's why Monovan is so successful. One of the things I teach my clients in Lanyap is begin answering the questions that they're going to ask. In the end, answer them up front. That's really key in the know, like, trust factor. When somebody can visualize their business working with you, or you're easing some of their fears early on. You're answering their questions, and you will notice they will literally lean in. The quiet piece goes away, and the dialogue, the call and response happens frequently, because you're opening yourself up to them. You're saying, come on, bring it on. Let me answer the challenging questions that you have, because we get where you're going. That's why you see when we say people buy with their eyes, they give you the technology to try something on virtually. Glasses is one of those things. Imagine this piece of furniture in your room. Let me show you, and you're showing the stickiness that you're there with the client. And hey, I'm not afraid to address the elephant in the room. Let's talk about it. That China isn't too delicate and it won't break. Let me show you why. And that's really key as you're walking through that journey with the client. And the more you do that up front, it's easier conversation on the back end. Far easier.
100%. All right. We love that. So great point. That's our first point. That's our first question. All right, guys. So let's move on to our second question, right? The second question is, how can you segment your B2B leads to ensure that your nurturing efforts are personalized and relevant? Oh, and this is another great question. Demographics are important, but you want to start digging into their pain points. You want to start understanding, how did they come to you from? Was it a search term? Was it a paid advertising? Was it something that stood out to them? What was that trigger that brought them in the door? Because if it's a pain point, then maybe you're bucketing them in that pain point and then sending them information that says, hey, this is how we solve for that pain point, right? If it's understanding a specific type of persona, maybe you're saying, hey, these personas, this is what they need in order to, we've seen this, we've studied our persona types like this is what they need in order to move the needle forward. So really starting to leverage those personas to have that conversation as you're nurturing them through, because now you start understanding, well, what's the content that I'm putting in front of these people? And they're all very different talk tracks, sometimes to get back to that same goal of selling them your product or your service, right? So I'm going to pass it over to the team.
So this is where I'm going to go back to, of course, those forms and how are you continuing to collect information on a prospect or a lead. So all these things are great, but it means you've got to continue to get information, more information from those prospects. So as you said, that lead behavior, those demographics, and we added in here firmographics. So what are those businesses' actual pain points? What are their contexts and challenges that they're looking at, right? So you definitely, to personalize, you need to know. You can't personalize if you don't know. You can't address somebody by their first name if you don't know their first name. And that might be just the first level that you collect information on. Now that they've downloaded, so they've gotten into your world, they've signed up for your newsletter, and maybe that sign up was just first name and email. But then you have a white paper on offer. So now you want to get, well, what industry are you in? How long have you been in the industry? So now you can speak to them in a personalized manner going forward. So you really want to make sure you're collecting that information along the way, not just that initial information, top of the funnel. Keep building that contact record. That's the important part to personalization.
I think it's to what Michael's saying, and I'm going to exit quickly on this, is remember when we're speaking the B2B space, you have multiple people that you're speaking to, so that information, and when you're segmenting, needs to be real succinct. You need to understand who that person is. Are they the doer, that influencer, that decision maker? Because the delivery of that information Michael was speaking on that you're collecting will require you to deliver that same message in a different way, pending the source, pending who that message will be delivered to.
Go, Andrea.
No, is a sub question I had in my head, and I'm going to throw it here. We're talking about the segmenting and in terms of segmenting these leads. At which point do you factor their ability to afford you, their budget constraints?
Oh, we could go for it tomorrow. Go for it.
I would say very early, right? So a perfect example, and I was going to add this, is like a quiz. So one of the things we have is a quiz that starts the conversation, right? It's taking the online presence assessment. And then in that quiz, we're asking a question about what's your budget? So very early, you get a response to you that says, hey, you might have a strong online presence, a weak online presence, or a medium online presence. And here are some of the things that you can do. But right away, we understand, okay, cool, this person can afford our services. This person can't afford our services. If they can't afford their services, they can still follow along the podcast, right? So maybe they're in a space where they're building towards that, but you have to know that very early. And you kind of determine in your prospecting, if I had to ask a few questions, because the prospecting is really quick and easy, right? If you make it about them, because the quiz is about their business, we're able to ask 2 questions that matter to us, right? Their business, of course, matters to us, but we're able to ask 2 specific questions that say, is this the right client for us? And that's where it starts. So you determine, hey, you don't have a quiz. What's on that form? What matters to you on that form? What are the 4 things you want to get, the 3 things you want to get if you're not going to be engaging them to give them a result that's about them? We just understand that people need to see themselves. They need to hear about, this is about you as they're moving through that cycle, as they're moving through that funnel. So we've set a quiz. But if you're trying something else, you need to say, what's important to me? Do I need to understand if they can afford me? And that's going to be a question. Name, email address, budget. Name, company, email address, budget, and then a drop-down menu of budget items. So you can say 0 to blah, 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 and then kind of go from there. You know your price point, so you can fit into that. So I don't know if you guys are going to add anything else to that.
So I know we have 2 examples tomorrow. So you gave one, I'll give the other. So the other example is you can add it at a point where, say, sales get involved, right? So if they're booking a consultation, for instance, or in our case, we have a different form for somebody who is a referral lead. right? So this person hasn't come in through normal channels. They haven't come in through an ad. They haven't come in through our website. They've come in by word of mouth. So now we send them a form and said, well, listen, we know that this is how you got in touch with us. We know nothing about you. We'd like to know something about you. And that's where we ask that question. So you really got to look at your sales process, and we're saying that it can be at different points. Agreed, Tamara, 100% that it should be early. But those are the kind of examples I would give to say, those two examples to say at points at which you can ask that question. And the ways at which you can ask that question, of course, is, have you done a project of this size? Give ranges instead of, a finite number and things like that. So definitely something you want to ask early, and different ways you can do it, different points you can set it.
Right. And I'll add to that, Tamara talked about, T talked about the online component. Michael spoke about as we're getting into the discovery piece when you're still online. I'm going to add the component because we're B2B space, and a lot of these may come in person because you're at some type of industry event. Remember, we're peopling again. We're peopling again. And you've got to be able to ask that question in a socialized fashion to the right person. So I'm going back to, who are you speaking to? Because the person you're speaking to may be the person that opened the door, but might not have that information at hand and understand what budgets are. So that's part of the discovery questions and understanding the person that you're speaking to and getting to that right question. And they can also be asked, and you'll be able to understand whether or not they have a clue, or they're just the person that's going to open the door and introduce you to someone, or they're the person that actually facilitates the budget, approve the budget, or sign for that budget. So you can ask those in different ways in the social setting. And it can be, how much have you invested in the past in this? Are you aware of what your results were for that investment? And just tiptoe your way into it if you're uncomfortable until you find your groove on the right social way to ask that question, to let them, what I say, qualify themselves in or out.
How much money you got?
It's a very relevant question, because you spoke about grouping them. Is that because if this group of people not really there yet, you're gonna have to nurture them differently. You don't want to be nurturing them thinking that they're gonna come on board and then they can't afford. That's money wasted. That's effort wasted. So to me, when I thought about the segmenting, I was like, okay, you should be segmenting these people based on whether they could even afford. That to me, that's one of the ways that you could segment them and nurture
100%.
them differently. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also thinking pipeline as well too. Also thinking
Qualify
pipeline.
them out.
Yeah. You qualify them
Correct.
out, or pipeline. Can they afford me a year from now, right? Are they doing it
Correct.
to build, and then can they afford me for a year from now? Are they moving into my pipeline of people that I may be educating? Because people sometimes come back a year or two later and they're like, hey, we're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
We didn't have the funds at this time, but now we do. So those are all definite considerations for sure.
Absolutely.
Next point. All right, so the next question is, how can B2B lead nurturing campaigns be tailored to address specific needs and challenges of different industries, particularly those with unique financial considerations? Ooh, that question is a mouthful. All right, so how can we do that, right? It starts off by, number one, understanding the industry. Right. So you have to understand the industry. You have to do the market research to understand where things are. When we work with clients, we tend to take that time to understand where the market is, period. Right. Is there opportunity in the market? Is there no opportunity in the market? So what are you saying to them? Right. The other thing is understanding the content for long sales cycles. What does that look like? What does that look like? Does it start off with a podcast that talks about B2B lead nurturing? And then from there, we're having a conversation, and then we're maybe meeting with the team to present something to them, or are they joining a webinar? What does that sales cycle really look like, right? And then, of course, Andrew, it's important for us to address the budgeting element, right? So providing educational content and case studies that talk about that. One of the things I can talk about is, as I've been writing more blogs as a part of, my campaign, or just this year in general, not just a part of the 50 to 50 day campaign. A part of that is to give an idea of budgets that people should be spending for their digital marketing, right? What should you be spending for a digital marketing consultant? What should you, so you're starting to get people in that framework of understanding and thinking about those things, right? So you have to kind of pull all the pieces together and think about that cycle. What are the things that are going to come up, and how do you start, answering those challenges, those questions, and getting them ready for what could be a 6 months or a year-long sales cycle. I'm gonna pass it over to Michelle.
And I think the only thing I'd add before Michelle goes is you've got to remain visible through this whole cycle. That's the main point. You've got to just remain visible.
So
that is so true.
That is so important. So, and I guess the question is, how do you remain visible, right? I know for me, as we're in a sales process, I get very antsy, and I'll say it to my old Michael all the time, like, what are we sending them? Did we communicate? What did we say? Did we follow up? Did we provide another thing? I don't know, like, I'm an annoying little sister. The last child. So a part of it is, am I being too annoying? Maybe, but not so annoying, but almost to that place of like, okay, cool. How do you stay visible? The podcast is a way to stay visible. What information are you sharing with them? Are you giving them things that make them feel like, hey, every time they send me something, man, it feels like it's super helpful and I could use it, right? So not to be the annoying little sister, but take some of those elements and work them in.
Drip campaigns, drip the information out. It's called drip for a reason,
Oh, it's not called annoying little sister, it's called drip campaigns.
The drip campaign, you're because you want to maintain, you don't want to ghost them. You don't want to go provide some information and then you disappear. That sales cycle in the B2B world is typically a longer sales cycle. There's an internal process. We spoke about this a couple of shows ago, that it is not turnkey. It's not a fast process in most instances if you're coming in at the early stages of their decision-making process. So that know, like, and that trust component is really key. And that consistency of information that you will divulge to varying of the community that's in that decision-making process. May they be the influencer, the gatekeeper, or the real decision maker that's at the table. So you'll need to drip out information to them, each person, in the way they receive information over the course of that buying cycle. So it's important to provide that infographic or that white paper or this podcast, show them the videos and allow them the opportunity to see you in different ways over the course of time and not oversaturate. You can get to a place where people see you so much, they're just sick of you. They're just sick of you and you don't want to be in that space. So that timing and understanding your buying community is really, really important.
We work with, I'll just add, we worked with one client, and we talk about it as content pillars, but we worked with one client that did content arcs. And given their industry, they were able to define what they would be talking about over the entire length of, say, a year, but it was really matched to that same long buying cycle of their ideal or typical customer. So that's one way to look at it and understand, if you're in your industry, you know that it's normally a 6 months or 8 month, then you can plan your content accordingly and say, month one, I'm going to talk about this, 2, this, 3, that, and keep going like that. Can't believe we were only at point number 4. Wow.
It's too much. Y'all get too excited. All right, I think we'll be able to run through this one. Not that I want to run through any of them, but next question, please. What are some best practices for automating B2B lead nurturing workflows using marketing automation tools? So Michael.
Listen.
This is you right here.
So you've got to, best practices for automation, you've got to define your goals and your target audience. We'll keep saying that. That's always necessary, that definition is clear, concise, and you know what you're going after. The content strategy, we just spoke about that, right? Create a diverse content mapped to your buyer's journey. And of course, workflow design. Now, workflow is a term that you'll hear a lot now, and that just means what happens, what triggers something, and then what are the actions that happens afterwards. These can be internal or external. This could be sending an email. This could be notifying a team member. This could be escalating to a higher person in your organization. Lead scoring, very important. So when we talk about getting these qualified leads, marketing qualified or sales qualified, and that each step in the pipeline that they make in the pipeline, what's the score? And that score is really saying what's our probability of them converting into a closed won situation. And then, of course, you've got to test and optimize. You've just got to test and optimize. As we say, when you put something out into the wild, it's going to behave wild, right? So you've got to test, you've got to look at what's happening, and you've got to improve. Use that data to see what's happening. Remember that your integrations are important. So knowing what's in your tech stack and how each thing connects to develop that buyer journey that's a good customer experience. You want to just make sure that all of that optimization is an ongoing effort. So that's the ways you can look at it to some of those best practices toward automation. And I'd say keep it simple as well. I'd add that in there. Automation tends to be something that you can, you get excited about. So you want to just keep it simple. They do this, we do that. That's it.
Just add that automation doesn't take away from personalization, having a conversation, the relationship building. It's just a tool, right? So we're not saying automate, because people hear automation and they're like, well, I don't want to lose touch with my customer. You're not. It's in addition to all the things you're already doing, right? So it's really, it goes hand in hand with it, and you cannot take away that physical interaction, that conversation, that meeting. You can't take those things away. They're still super important. Automation just adds makes your strategy more robust.
Because you're really looking at how much you can handle, right, on a daily basis. So that's where the automation comes in. So, for example, you want your prospects to get a certain form automatically. You don't want to have to go in and say, okay, let's say you just finished a conference. You've got a whole list of leads. Now, normally you'd have to go in and you want to write each one of those leads. This is where we're saying automation can work, depending on what you had on the form and the personalized information, things about themselves, things about their industry, their business, their company, that now goes into the communication. So that's where we're going to mesh it, right? But it's really just to ease the load. That's what it is. It's not to replace it. It's just to ease the lifting.
100%. Love that. All right. So, all right, moving on to the next question. I know we're at that time check, so we probably have time for one more. How can you integrate your B2B lead nurturing efforts with your sales pipeline management for a seamless customer experience? Oh, that sounds like a question that has like Michelle's name all over it. I was just like, I was like, is that a Michelle question? You're muted.
Let me come off of mute to say, I love this question, and thank you, Nia, for it. In that, we go back to something that we said very early on, is that we need to share where there is some synergy, where there's some crossover. So share where there's definitions and our goals are aligned, and understanding for the sales and marketing team, what's the commonality that's there. And one part of that is educating what the terms mean. Like we hear MQL, SQL, what in the heck is that? And what does that mean? So that we're all speaking the same language and we're actually on the same path. Understanding what our revenue goals are. If everybody has a point that we understand that we're trying to get to, we can put a stake in the ground and say, okay, where are we as time moves along? And I think that's a big piece of it, because that not only puts a stake in the ground for the sales and marketing arm, but it brings in our finance team. It brings in our operations team, because they're looking to understand and know, well, where are we in that process? How much more do we have to go? And then understanding where they play a part in getting to that destination as well. So I thought that was really key in understanding that. And then the next piece, I think, goes right back to Michael when we're talking about the tech stack. I think that's one for him, actually.
Absolutely. So again, that comes back into that integrated CRM, right? That's where it's at. If you're a small business, 2024, you should be looking at a CRM of some level. So of course, for us, the choice is HubSpot. And then, of course, looking at that lead scoring transparency, we spoke a little bit about that, but sales must have that visibility. How are the leads scored? What's, how are you understanding, how are you setting that lead quality and prioritizing depending on, where that lead is and what's the quality of that lead? So, yep, that's me. That's me. But I'll continue into that clear. The CRM will definitely help you have a clear handoff process, right? So when that sales lead has to go from one level to a next, then the next person getting that contact understands where they've been, who they've spoken to, what they've spoken about, all the good stuff, so that they're not starting over and probably causing friction by causing frustration.
And I just want to add to that. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who was helping her kid move, and they were working on getting internet, right? And it took them forever, and they had to call places and connect with folks, and everyone's like, I'll call you back, I'll do this, I'll do this. You know that experience that you get where it's like, oh, cool. And every time you're telling the story, so there's no, they could, as she was talking to me, I could see that they had no contact data, they had no information. So every time it was a first conversation for her. So think about that customer going through that process of not knowing, right, what is happening. And it's just every time they talk to someone, hey, something brand new. So you really want to utilize that CRM, because the CRM is the holder of, Michael calls it, the one source of truth. It's the place where all the information, this is how many times they've been contacted, this is the last thing they talked about, this is the last thing they did, this is what we did, so that someone taking that conversation over, someone sending out some information now understands, hey, this person has been through all of this, please don't start at the beginning with them. And those are some of the experiences that we're talking about as you're moving through a sales cycle, right?
And such a powerful thing when you do talk to the next person and don't have to repeat yourself. Like, what's the power of that? When you're like, oh, you literally, like, you get taken aback and you're like, this is absolutely fantastic. So that's why you want to be there.
You understood what I was saying. And I think it's key to the next piece brings in all of us again, the regular communication and understanding what the next goal is. One of the things that I think is key, especially from a sales perspective, when I'm trying to understand my next routes and where I advise clients in the finance piece. But it starts with, for instance, later on today, Tamara and I have a call. We have a meeting today about things for Lanyap, and it's specifically to speak to, okay, I am ready to move to the next phase, and I'm writing some things to get Lanyap out there a bit more and talk about things. But I've got to make sure that I have the right key terms. I've got to make sure that that message, here's where I want to go and the things that we're trying to do. Am I on the right track? And how do I not waste time or money as I'm walking down this path? And goodness knows I need to have components of this automated. So from an operational perspective, where should I have this sit? Here are the components that I have in the life cycle of what we're trying to accomplish in this journey. And every person on the screen has a role in that for my business as well as yours. So it's on the onset that we're having this conversation for every aspect, but especially for B2B, it's really important that you understand that horizon and where for every component of where we're going, have I checked off the box? Have I considered everything from a marketing perspective, a sales perspective? Now, how much does this cost me? Is it time for a paid campaign, and what does that look like? And can we afford it? And how much can we afford? What is that ROI that I need to communicate to my finance person to say, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's where I can expect it to not only hit for as an expense, but where I can expect that cash register to ring. And oh my God, how much of this can I automate? Where do we then take that client once we obtain them? And post operations, here's the information I need to deliver to you so that you understand what that client is saying, what they're expecting of us, so that you can then pick up the ball and run with it at that point and keep them happy, keep them in the continuum, keep them talking about us to help bring in the next client to our business. So I think all of those are key for all four of us to have at the table.
100%. I know, right? All right. So we are, so this is the last question. Oh, we're squeezing it in. I'm sorry. Nia's like, we're squeezing it in. How can you nurture leads who are not ready to buy, but may potentially become customers one day? And Andrea asked about this a little bit, right? So we'll talk about it. This is where you educate them, because they still fit some elements of the demographic, the target audience. They may not hit all 10 points, right? Their lead score might be, if you're looking at a lead score to pass off to sale, let's say is an 8 to a 10, right? This person might be a 4 or a 5. They may be in a stage of DIY. They've just started their business a year. They're like, hey, I have a CFO, but I haven't gotten anywhere else. So they understand some of the things that are important to grow business. They understand where business growth is. So this is where you start looking at educating those people, right? And this is actually something that we're working on, especially with my webinar and workshop coming up. No shameless plug. It's just about talking to some of those people who are already doing the work, but who want to just do it better. So they're doing their digital ads, but they don't understand necessarily what to do. They're spending money and they're like, but if they can get that to say, hey, this has increased my revenue by, threefold, then, as they continue to do it over time, as they're more and more successful, what will happen is that they'll come back to the people that have educated them. So that's where you're building that important pipeline that could be 2 years down the road. Now, you're not spending any extra time or money to educate them, right? The tools that you've created, a video podcast where you talk to people about digital and digital marketing every Monday and Wednesday at 7 a.m. It's a great place to start, right? The concepts of the hot topics, all the things that we do here in the show. A blog is a great way to move them in that direction, right? Give them the strategies, the ideas, and then have them, implement those things. And so as they start seeing success, they kind of come back to say, you were the company that taught me how to do this. You were the one that worked for me. And I've had this with one of the clients we work with right now, Orlando Hot Yoga Studio and Yoga and Pilates Studio. When I first met them, I go there, I was talking to the lady, we're, having a great conversation. I was like, oh, I do digital marketing. And over time, a year later, she came to me and she's like, hey, I'm ready for you. Like literally, she's just like, you. I was like, me? Put me in coach. And it was that time because she did all the things that she needed to do. We had an initial conversation, gave her an initial price, and she was just like, hey, we're not there yet. But when she got there, she reached out to me first. So it's that time of spending time educating and giving them an opportunity to do the work, gain some traction with the information that you've given them. Nothing hurts in giving out some high level free information. I mean, I do it all the time. I know people are like, hey, you should not. I'm like, if you try it and it works, you're going to be like, Tamara told me that.
And I think part of it that's key is, and what you're saying too, is you have to be honest enough to say you're not ready for me in the best of ways. But here's when you will be, and give them the indication of, here are the things that I see in your horizon that you need to take care of first before you're ready for us. And this will be your trigger. But in the meantime, here are the things that you can look at.
Comment.
And so you're setting the expectation. You're telling them, how to self-qualify and when you'll be ready. But here's how we can still remain engaged in the benefits of still with us keeping in touch. So they'll remember those things and they'll keep things in mind, but they won't reach out too soon, and you'll keep them warm.
100%. So like, Nia, no more questions. Nia's like in the back, like, guys, we need to squeeze this last question, and it's a really good question. I'm like, she so runs this show at this point. All right. So final thoughts, Andrew, I'm going to kick it over to you. I know you love this lead nurturing conversation. Go for it.
Oh, yeah, I love this conversation because it's such a critical part of getting money in the bank, right? This is where you start to see, potentially money coming into you. And I don't want people to, or at least I want people to truly appreciate what this process is and do not underestimate the power of the customer experience that we're speaking about in all of this, because in all of this nurturing, we're speaking about the customer experience, the blog, the reaching out, the follow-up, all these things are packaging the customer experience for you. And don't underestimate how much this could impact their eventual decision. It's a really important part. And while you're doing that, also be mindful of how much it's going to cost you in the end. And that's why I asked the question about if people can afford you, because if you're doing all this nurturing, you probably have a great nurturing process, but then you're nurturing the people that can't give you the maximum revenue that you're looking for. And then that's when your nurturing process could actually turn into a loss-making exercise for you, because you're pumping money into this great process, all the bells and whistles, but the people that are coming in are not the people that are giving you back the maximum revenue. So don't forget that very important aspect when considering your nurturing.
Love that. Go for it, Michelle.
I'm going to take this opportunity to plug our past shows. And because one of the things that we have said throughout this, that we've said every show, and I know we said it definitely 2 shows ago, you're going to hear us repeat some of the same themes, because we're quite consistent in what we're saying. It all starts in this whole nurturing process. Even though we're talking about the B2B space, we have to define who our clients are and understand their segment, their personas, what makes them tick, and define our goals and journeys. When we make those definitions, that nurturing process, the sales process, how we need to market, when we need to bring the finance or operations team, it's all intentional. These are intentional acts that we have to and through the sale and the rebuy. Every component of it is really important, and it helps you to identify your lanyard, your something extra, when we're that intentional and understand what we need from that client when they're appropriate for us, or when we say not quite yet. But it's key to go back to the start for us to define what we need and who that client is, so that we may speak to them appropriately and define when they need to come to us. So go back and look at our past shows. We've got a lot of content there for you to listen to and to consume, and you can implement one thing each time.
And my last 2 cents, definitely build that customer record, build that prospect record, continue to build it. Use that CRM to make sure you're connecting the activities between marketing and sales and operations, in fact, so that you're delivering that. That is your way to deliver that holistic experience, that good customer experience, to understand how much that customer is going to cost you by the end of it all. Just as Andrea said, where to disqualify. Your CRM is your go-to tool.
Hashtag HubSpot partners, we are.
Hashtag HubSpot.
We're HubSpot partners, by the way. Shameless plug. CRM, if you're looking for a CRM, it's a CRM we use, recommended. It's great. All right. No, so you guys have all, I loved all the closing points, and it comes back. I think I'll come back to what I said in the beginning, right? We spend so much time on lead generation, and we don't spend a lot of time on lead nurturing. And this is where the work really happens. People buy from people that they know and they've built relationships with, and nurturing gets you to that place of, hey, we have a relationship. We are, we have some type of relationship, and I can see myself buying from you because we have this relationship. So that's what the nurturing really has to do. It is a well thought out process of defined steps. So it's not something that you can really just throw together. You have to think through the steps, and you have to think it through from the customer's perspective, not just from your perspective, your business's perspective, your goals. Those are important, but you have to wrap it around that customer journey, and that is what becomes really important. So if you're working with an agency, if you're doing it yourself, are you thinking through the steps in that nurture cycle? What does it look like? If you haven't thought it through, it's time for you to take a step back and really think through the steps in that nurture sequence. It's not just an email, it's a lot of different pieces of the pie. So I'll leave it right there for now. I know we're a little bit out of time, guys. This was a great show. I know we had so much fun. You guys had so much to say. So it's always fun when the team has a lot to say. Andrew's in the background asking us questions, giving us things to think about. And Nia's like, one last question. So it was a really good show. I had such a great time, but I'm going to get the housekeeping out of the way before we head out. Don't forget to connect with us, okay? Tell a business executive about this show. Tell a small business owner about this show. This is a show where we help you connect that money in the bank, right? How do you leverage digital and digital marketing to really grow your business? We know that you're spending a lot of time there. We know that you're spending a lot of money there. We want you to see the ROI on your digital and your digital marketing efforts. So connect with us. We're live on YouTube. We're live on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at 7 a.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. But you can connect with us after that, right? You don't have to watch it live. That's fine. Just watch it later on. And if you prefer podcasts, we're everywhere podcasts are found. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Amazon, we're on Google. We are in all the right places. So definitely connect with us. Share this with a small business owner. Share this with a business executive. We help give them the blueprint to get to that place of leveraging digital, to get to that place of money in the bank. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. This was an awesome show, guys. I will see you guys here on Wednesday. But wait, let me let you know that Wednesday, we're super excited to bring to our show Debbie Mitchell. She is a Emmy nominated producer, and she will be joining us on the show on Wednesday. She'll have her own little segment where she'll be talking about really the importance of video in the space of being a business executive, of really building thought leadership, of using it to position yourself as a subject matter expert. It's something that we're doing here. And so she's going to bring that segment to the table. We're super excited to have her. She'll be with us every other Wednesday. So I can't wait to have her. I mean, we have an Emmy nominated TV producer coming to the show. Oh, super excited. We cannot wait. It's going to be awesome to join us. She's going to replace our hot topic segment when she's here, so we have enough time. So it's going to be awesome. The show is expanding, and we're super excited about that. So have an amazing day, guys. Again, tell a business executive about this show. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.